How?
He is the one.
What's up, world? It is Chris Anthony coming at you live and direct one more time. And I got a good subject today. I'm going to be talking about something that's universal, that is all over the world, that everybody can feel, that happens to you when you are going throughout life. It's a universal pattern. Now, a guy, Joseph Campbell, actually came up with this pattern in the 20th century because he went back, he read through all of these stories, these myths, all of these cultures that had these ancient writings, these religious writings. He read them all and studied them all, and he saw that it was a universal pattern going on inside of these stories. And he wondered how a culture that's all the way in Africa somewhere can write and have the same type of pattern in their story as somebody that's all the way over here in China, or something that was written back in 2000 BC could be the same or have similar patterns in it inside of the story as something that's written all the way over here in 2000 AD. So he said, okay, I'm seeing the same similar pattern in all of these stories. What is going on? And he found out that it was similar patterns used that was called the hero's journey. He coined the phrase the hero's journey, and it was the concept of this universal pattern that's used in all the myths, all the fairy tales, all of the folklore, all of the religious writings, when they had a hero going after a villain and trying to do this and overcoming this and dying and reborn again, and all of these. This happens every time in pretty much all of your best movies that you watch, the best books that you read, the stories that you read. When it has a hero, a villain, somebody to save, some big task, it's the hero's journey. Now, Joseph Campbell said this happened and it was universal. This pattern popped up in all these stories because it actually came from the collective unconscious. He said this is the part of us that we all have inside of our psyche that pretty much records all of the things that happened in history, because we are all connected some type of way, and it's through our consciousness. So he said that the unconscious collective was pretty much making these people write these stories and have the same similar patterns in all of these stories, because it actually is telling us the story of our mind. Now, in primitive, or let's say ancient civilizations, somehow they knew this hero's journey. They knew this journey of our mind, or the journey of the human, the development of our human being. And the way that they kind of dealt with this was they initiated their children. They brought them out when they were coming of age, when they were about to turn into teenagers or something, and they went through this whole initiation process. So all of the kids will go in, and you know, in certain tribes they would go snatch the kids up, you know, or they would snatch the young men up, and they did a different ceremony maybe for the young women, but they would snatch them up from their mothers, take them into the forest or into the woods, you know, alone, and then they would test them and put them through these different challenges. And then at the end of the initiation, when they came back, they were kind of like reborn. They were a different person. They could go and they could handle the challenges of life with this new identity that they had. So the hero's journey is actually the journey of your mind being developed into an individual person. You being an individual, you being yourself instead of being somebody who struggles internally or has this internal war going on back and forth, trying to figure out who you are, what you should do, what I should be when I grow up, where I should go, which direction should I head in, all of this, because you actually went through this process. So we all go through this process because this process pulls at us. It's the journey of life. It is the story of life. And the thing that happens on the hero's journey inside of our psyche is your conscious mind is combined with your subconscious mind. Now, they don't teach this in school. When you go down in elementary school and middle school and high school, they don't tell you that your conscious mind needs to be combined with your subconscious mind so that you can become an individual and you can actually go on this journey in life as a stronger self, and you can be yourself. They don't teach self-education. They only teach an artificial education inside of schools. That's why the school system is so messed up. I'm not even going to get into that, but I will break down the stages of the hero's journey. So the first stage of the hero's journey, this is the first stage of your human development, your psyche. You find yourself at the status quo, the mundane world. So in any story or movie that you watch that has the hero's journey inside of it, like let's say Matrix, for instance. On the first Matrix, Neo, he was in the status quo world. He was in the mundane world. He had a job as a computer programmer. He was walking around bored pretty much with life, and he had all these different questions that were unanswered. And this is where you find yourself, because it's an internal struggle going on, because you have all these questions that are not being answered and you're bored with life. You don't have any passion. You don't have any excitement. You don't have anything to look forward to in life. You don't have anywhere to go, any vision for your life. So you have this internal struggle inside of this mundane world, and you're at the status quo point. The next thing that happens is you get a call to act, a call to action. And the universe kind of gives you this call to action. In movies, it comes from somebody else. Like in The Matrix, Morpheus was calling Neo. He was trying to get in touch with him. Trinity came up and she was like, I know what's going on. I know what you're feeling. I know that every night you go to sleep with this question. You have this scratch, this itch that you can't scratch, and you're trying to see what is going on. And that's what happens with the universe. It comes to you and it calls you like, yeah, it is something you're supposed to be doing bigger than what you're doing right now. It's this journey that you're supposed to be going into inside of life. It's this unknown world that you're supposed to get into, but you have to leave your comfort zone. You have to leave that familiar world that you know about. Now, inside of the hero's journey diagram, which I'll put on this video somewhere, you'll see that it has two sides to it. The first side, or the upper side of the circle, because it's a circle, the upper side is the familiar world, the ordinary world. The lower side of the circle is the unfamiliar world, or the special world is what Joseph Campbell called it. So the top part is your conscious and the bottom part is your subconscious mind, because this is the process. So you're getting called out of this unfamiliar world, and the first thing that happens is the second part of the phase is you refuse the call. You say, no, I'm good. I'm better off being comfortable. I like going to work and coming back and watching Netflix and eating some popcorn and going to sleep. I like going to school and coming back home and just chilling out and getting online on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and just enjoying what other people are doing. I like living vicariously through other people. You know what? I'm good. I'm going to stay right here. So that's usually what happens. What happens next is a spiritual aid or a mentor comes to you to kind of shake you and wake you up. Like, what are you doing? You're supposed to actually be going on this journey. You need to wake up because you've been having this internal struggle, and this is actually the answer to that question that you've been having. Like, this itch that you can't scratch, this is what you need to do. You need to get on, pack your bags, and go on this journey. So the hero inside of all these stories usually agrees with the spiritual aid. Like, the monkey in Lion King, he came to Simba and he was like, Simba, you need to go ahead and start this journey, man, because you got a whole nation that's waiting for you, and there's terrible things going on, and you need to stop saying Hakuna Matata and leave this comfort zone and actually go into a challenge. So that's what the universe is trying to get to you. It's trying to get you to leave the familiar world, to go into the unfamiliar world, to go into the depths of your subconscious mind. So when you accept the call, then you say, okay, I'm about to go into the unfamiliar world. And the first thing that you meet is the threshold guardian, because you're about to pass the first threshold. Now, the threshold is where the the unfamiliar world meets the familiar world, or let's say the conscious mind meets the subconscious mind. And the thing that you face is the threshold guardian. And the threshold guardian in movies or stories is actually some type of creature or monster or mythical protector that's like scary, that pretty much is not about to let you pass over that threshold, because he is there to guard it. And this is a symbolism of your shadow self. Now your shadow self is the part of you that you hide, like you pretty much have rejected. It's the rejected part of your personality that society wouldn't accept it, and it doesn't fit into the social norm, so you put it on the back burner and put it into the shadow of your psyche. Now that actually is also the part of you that runs autopilot. Whenever you're thinking about the future or thinking about the past, then the shadow self is running your body and running your mind, and it's the autopilot part of yourself that you don't really even know that much about because it's in the shadows. So you have to face your shadow self before you can descend into the deeper levels of your subconscious mind, and you have to fight this person, or you have to fight yourself. You know, in the stories or the myths, it's a person or a thing. So the way that you defeat this is you actually have to accept your shadow self. You have to accept the side of yourself that you rejected, the side of your personality that you don't think people will accept. You actually need to accept it yourself and start to love that part of yourself, and know that it's actually a piece of you and it's not a piece that you need to hide or reject. So when you accept it, then you're actually able to pass this threshold, and you get an inner strength inside of you. And it's the inner strength to go on to the rest of the journey, to go deeper into the deeper levels of the subconscious mind. Now, when you do that, the next part of the phase that happens is the dark night of the soul, or you being swallowed up by a whale. In the Bible, Jonah, pretty much, he had to go inside of the belly of a whale or a big fish, and this is the beginning. This is when you enter into your subconscious mind. In the Matrix, I believe it was when Neo pretty much was leaving the Matrix, and he got unplugged and he thought he was losing his mind. You know, in any movie, when somebody kind of like touches something that's supposed to be still, like he touched the mirror and then it stuck to him and moved, like that was him about to go into the subconscious mind. Like in Alice in Wonderland, through the looking glass, she saw the glass or the mirror, and she saw that it was a portal into this other world, which was her subconscious mind. In Narnia, they went through the portal, they went inside of this closet. So all these different portals, they are representative in these movies into your subconscious mind. It's simple, so it's just symbolism. So when you accept, and you accept the metamorphosis, you accept the transformation, then you go to the next part, the trials, the tests, the challenges, the obstacles, and you pretty much get beat up by life at the end of the day, because it's the dark night of soul. You go through all these different hurdles, and you get stronger, and you develop these skills, and people test you and they try you up, and they, you know, talk behind your back, and all of these things happen because you're actually going through the challenge part of life that is trying to show you your potential, your skills, all the things that you have that you didn't think you had, because you are trying your limitations. You are actually expanding as a person. Your mind is expanding because you have to solve all of these obstacles. And if you can make it through this part, then you go to the next part, which is the approach. Now the approach is the part of life, or the part of the journey in any movie, where the hero sits down and it kind of ponders over all of the obstacles that it just overcame, all the training that it went through, because it knows that the next part that's going to be after this journey is going to be the real deal, the real thing. So you went through all these test challenges to get you ready for the great ordeal, which is the next step after the approach. But for the approach, you're sitting down for a second in solitude, and you're kind of thinking about what's about to happen next, because you know it's about to really go down now. Like all that other stuff was just preparation for the great ordeal. This is the climax of the story. This is the climax of the movie. It's kind of like you know, when Neo had to fight Agent Smith, or when Luke Skywalker had to fight Darth Vader. This is when it's about to go down. So what's happening inside the approach is you're kind of getting some more help from people. This is a lot of times in the movie too, where you speak to the oracle or you speak to another spiritual aid or another type of mentor, and they tell you more about yourself. Like when Neo had got finished training, then he went inside of the Matrix to speak to the oracle, and the oracle was like, yeah, you're the one, but you need to figure this out, you need to figure that out, you need to actually like get prepared for what's about to go down, because you're about to have this great ordeal, this great battle. And so once you get finished thinking about that, then you go into the great ordeal, the great battle. And what happens in the battle is the crisis happens, and inside of the great ordeal you have to die and be reborn again and be transformed. This is when the culmination of the metamorphosis actually occurs. So when you go to the great ordeal and you go into this great battle, then crisis is about to happen, and seemingly what happens inside of the stories and the myths is you die. Neo got shot by Mr. Anderson. He died. Like in other stories, like heroes or you know, the hero of the story almost died or something, because you have to die in order to be transformed, and you have to have a rebirth in order to be this new person. So like in the story of Jesus, he actually died. He died on the cross, and then he had to be reborn or resurrected to be this new person. So it happens in every story. Krishna happening inside of Buddhism. Buddha went through the same thing. He died and had to be reborn. It is universal. So when you die to yourself, what happens is you're dying to the old world, you're dying to the old thinking, the old conscious mind, the ego, where you thought that this is all that it was. You thought that it was just the conscious mind, and you had no idea about this subconscious world, this unfamiliar, unknown world that you're in now, and you find yourself in. So you went through this dark night of the soul, you went through all these challenges, these tests, and now you have to like fight against your biggest limitation, your biggest fear, the great ordeal. And if you can make it through this crisis by facing your biggest fear, then you will die and be reborn again into a transformed individual. This is when the individuation process, the merging of your conscious mind comes all the way with your subconscious mind, and it comes together, and it's like, yes. And what happens if you are actually able to be reborn is you get the ultimate boon. Now the ultimate boon is what Joseph Campbell described as your unrealized potential. That's the whole reason why you went on the journey in the first place. You went inside of your subconscious mind to get your unrealized potential, so you can become an individual and actually have a life that's filled with passion, and have a vision, and have a journey to go on, and have this gift that nobody else has. This is where you find your uniqueness. So once you get this, then you're transformed and you have a new identity, and you also have this ultimate boon. Now in myths, this is like the elixir, the holy grail, Excalibur. This is when Neo stopped the bullets flying in the air, and he found out that he can fly, and he can dodge bullets, and he can stop bullets, and he had like control inside of the Matrix. This is what you get when you go through the great ordeal. Also, what happens in this process, I'm not going to get too deep into this because you should probably go study the hero's journey yourself, but you come into contact in your psyche with the anima and the animus. Now the anima and animus is, if you're a man, it's the feminine side of you inside of your psyche, and if you're a woman, it's the masculine side of you inside of your psyche. You discover this, and we all have it. We have a feminine side of our psyche. Because me being a man, I have a feminine aspect of me inside of my psyche, and if you're a woman, you have a masculine aspect of you. And the way that you know that you're inside of this part in life is you have all these different relationships. You have these soulmates that you meet, these lovers that pretty much try you, and they test you, and they're trying to show you your anima or your animus, because the anima or animus can only be reflected in the opposite sex. So when you get into a relationship with a lover, your anima or animus is being reflected by that person. How you view the opposite sex is what the anima or animus is, and it's inside of you, inside of your psyche. So that's just something added in, because that's another part of your self-development. It's the individuation process. So once you pass this great ordeal, you get this great boon, you get this unrealized potential, then you go to the next part of the journey, which is your new identity. And then after that, you head home. You return to the conscious world, you return to the ordinary world, but now that you return with all of this unrealized potential, and now you have integrated your subconscious with your conscious mind, and you know who you are, you know your identity, you know yourself, that's when it's about to go down, because you're bringing this ultimate boom back to everybody else, and you can help the world with it. You can teach people things, you can show people things, you can perform, you can be the artist, you can be the business owner, you can be whatever you want to be in life when you find out who you are, because you went through this whole process of the hero's journey. You come back full circle when you return home, or you return to the status quo. And when Neo returned to the status quo, he returned back to the Matrix, but now he was flying. Instead of being asleep inside of the Matrix trying to figure out who he was in the beginning, he could fly, he could stop bullets, he can free people from the Matrix, he can do all of these different things because he discovered his unrealized potential. And that is the journey that you have to go on in life. You have to discover your unrealized potential by going into your subconscious mind, into the depths of the dark that you don't know anything about, the unknown world, and discover who you are when you go down into the depths of your mind by being tried, challenged with these tests and these challenges, these obstacles, which is called the dark night of the soul. And once you get through all of this, you are reborn, rebirthed, and you come out on the other end with a new identity and with the ultimate boom, your unrealized potential to affect the world. I hope this video helped you in some type of way. It's Chris Anthony, and I'm out.